Hi, I'm Kim Richardson, and welcome to Micro Business News Network. We are here with Module 2, our authors series, and we are the forum for disseminating information for your business. We're your local tool to let your voice be heard at an affordable price using cutting-edge technology. The word on the streets is you can't afford not to showcase your business on Micro Business News Network. Well, time is money, and we are here today with Dr. Bernadette Anderson. Hi, Dr. Anderson.
Hello, Kim, and thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure and a delight to be here.
That's right. Now, Dr. Bernadette Anderson is president of the Speech Excel Center, Incorporated. She's also author of Good Speech Makes Good Sense. Tweak the way you speak.
And Good Speech Makes Good Sense derived from my work with individuals from different parts of the world. When I started my company in the 1980s, early 1980s, I decided to use my knowledge of languages, having learned to speak 5 languages, with my knowledge of speech-language pathology. And I decided to help minimize the accents of non-native physicians and other people who were in the medical field and business who'd learned English as a second language. My emphasis was in getting them to pronounce words differently and to use the intonation patterns that mirror the speech patterns of American speakers of English. We tend to say, or we use this kind of pattern, da-da, ba-da, ba-da, da-da. The house is on the other street. Notice that pattern? I had clients from India, for example, who would say, oh, we are going to develop a new plan. Develop, meaning develop. So I'd show them how to use the enunciation or articulation or pronunciation of specific words that were shown in the dictionaries and how to use those critical or diacritical markings for the sounds they wanted to produce so that Americans could understand them more readily. Especially my first client, Dr. Marcus Lee, and I'm not divulging any secrets, we were both in Crane Chicago business. I was asked to work with Dr. Marcus Lee by the supervising physician at the University of Chicago. I had done something interesting. I sent 3 letters out to 3 teaching medical institutions in Chicago. I sent a letter to the University of Chicago, one to the University of Illinois Medical School, and another one to Rush University and Medical School. And right away, within 3 days, I received a call from Dr. George Block, who was head of surgery at the University of Chicago. He said, Dr. Anderson, you're just what we need. We have by far the brightest surgical resident to walk through our doors. But if something is not done about his English, his career is going down the drain. I said, I can help him. I didn't have my materials together. I didn't know exactly what I would do. I just knew I could do it. So I created a manual that showed the different mouth positions, 40 basic mouth positions for the 40 basic sounds in American English. And off to the home of Dr. Marcus Lee I went. I worked with him at his kitchen table. I had my tape recorder in my briefcase, my learning materials, training materials, and his pregnant wife and other family members were overlooking as we worked. We worked hard, and in that Crane Chicago Business article, which came out in 1987, Dr. George Block gave me the greatest review. He said that I had certainly done a great job with Dr. Marcus Lee, and that as a result of it, his career was saved. So that's how I began this business of minimizing accents in speakers. I then decided, I'll take this further. So I placed an ad in one of the medical journals in Chicago and wound up going to Orland Park to work with a physician from the Philippines. I wound up going to Skokie to work with a physician from Israel. I went to Rush University Medical School to work with a physician there. And I was going to different places, and I decided, my goodness, I'm doing so much running. I was the doctor who made house calls to doctors. I loved it, but I thought I better have a central place in which to work. So I decided to rent office space downtown, and I had an office space downtown for 17 years, from 1983 to 2000. So that was a 17-year stint. I enjoyed it. It was great. And I continued to do other kinds of work as well. Getting back to the accent modification, which is very critical for many people, I was often asked if I would work with black people. Why don't you work with those black sports people? Or how about working with those kids who are in the ghettos? And how about working with people who are here and there? And I thought, well, I didn't want to be pigeonholed as the one black person who worked with black people. That was a different way of thinking. As I moved along, I decided that is a possible sample, that is a possible population for me to use in my work. Therefore, I decided to create some more materials, and I developed My Fellow Americans, It's Cool to Speak Like You've Been to School. And as I said earlier, the motivation for this came from Oprah Winfrey. When I was on her show in November 1987, the topic was Black English Dialect. Does it help or hinder African Americans in corporate America? My position then was the same as it is now. That is, African Americans must use standard American English for business because it is the primary code for business. And not only African Americans need to use this book, but Latinos and people who use hip-hop, those who are speaking hip-hop, who are not minorities, but they're often saying words like, I don't be doing this and they don't be doing that. So My Fellow Americans, It's Cool to Speak Like You've Been to School is the book for everybody.
Now, here at Micro Business News Network, we are fascinated to have Dr. Bernadette Anderson, author of Good Speech Makes Good Sense. Tweak the way you speak, but we got to pay the bills around here. So we're going to pause for a word from our sponsors.
2 minutes, 2 seconds, ladies.
Okay. Now, I need to back you up just a little bit.
Okay.
I need to take you in. I need to find out exactly what you are. I need to bring out that you're a speech and language pathologist and linguist.
Speech language pathologist and linguist, okay.
And I'm going to talk about more specifically what type of people need your services, how expansive is your business. This line of questioning right here will make you get involved. And some of these things you have already covered, but I'm just going to slow you down just a little bit, okay? Just a little bit.
Okay,
all
that's
right?
good.
1 minute, 30 seconds.
All right, so we'll get you there.
You're going to use this? You're going to go into this immediately? Or
Yeah, hold that one up because I'm going to mention it again.
the cassette tape?
Yes, I am. I'm going to mention it again.
Yeah, CD. It's also available on audiobook.
Yes. Not really. I'm working on that. See, it is. It was on cassettes, 2 cassettes. And as you listen to it, you can hear me say, now turn over the cassette for da-da-da. Oh, no.
Right. 30 seconds. 20. Dr. Anderson, tap your mic again, please.
Tap my mic. So,
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. When the Micro Business News Network continues.
Kim Richardson, Micro Business News Network here, and we're here speaking with the author of Good Speech Makes Good Sense, Dr. Bernadette Anderson. Dr. Anderson, I understand that you actually do have a title of what you do, not just someone who likes to help people speak. You're actually a speech language pathologist and linguist?
yes.
That's a mouthful. Can you tell me what exactly that is?
A speech language pathologist, that's what I am. I'm also a linguist. When I received my bachelor's and my master's from the University of Illinois, I could have gone on to get what's called the Certificate of Clinical Competence, but it was a new thing, as one of my supervisors said. So she said, well, Bernie, you can either go for that Certificate of Clinical Competence or you can just ignore it. That was not the best advice, because years later when I received my PhD from Northwestern University in 1981, having that master's degree with the CCC, as they called it, Certificate of Clinical Competence, which you get after you take exams, national boards exams. That individual with a master's degree and the CCC, Certificate of Clinical Competence, was more marketable than I was with a PhD from Northwestern University.
Wow.
So I had to get myself certified. I got on board with the Chicago public school system. Since I was here, I worked for 9 months under a person with a master's degree and the Certificate of Clinical Competence, a woman named Kathy, who was just so ecstatic that she was going to be guiding a PhD in the program. I was ecstatic because I was going to be getting my CCC at the end of that. And it was a wonderful mix. I enjoyed it. While I was working for the Chicago Public Schools, I developed a program called Sound Pronunciation Cards and Cassettes. Sound Pronunciation Cards, Posters, and Cassettes. I showed mouth positions of the 40 basic sounds in American English, and I would align them from left to right to actually sound out words. That's another product that I plan to recompose in the not-too-distant future. I was able to get a young man from the Marshall Islands who was 16 years of age in middle school and whose reading score was 1.7. At the time, I was working in the middle school, and I was working with a boy who had a lisp. I laid down the cards, and I had a cassette program, too, that produced the sounds that were made. On the cassettes, I would tell the student to find card number 16, card number 1, number 4, number 5, align them from left to right, point and listen to these sounds, as just an example. And this boy who was in the class before, in my class, my therapy room before, this boy from the Marshall Islands said, sleep. I said, do it again, Tony. And I was recording him as he was saying it. Sleep. I asked, what's the word, Tony? He said, I don't know what that word is.
I know that's right.
And then this boy from the Marshall Islands walked in. I asked him to point and listen to the sounds, listen to those diagrams, the mouth positions. He heard sleep. I asked him, what's the word? He said, sleep. I said, hey, sit down right here. And I began working with him with my trial product. Later, I formulated it to its completion and gave a set to his teachers. He had 2 teachers at the school. It was very interesting, the kinds of responses they gave me, because he went from having a reading score of 1.7 to a reading score of about 7 point something. So he had raised his reading score by 6 years, and when I presented the program to these teachers, I thought they would be ecstatic and very happy, but they weren't. I never quite figured that out. Nevertheless, I began using those products with other speech pathologists. That is, I was selling them. I sold those smaller, manipulable cards to speech pathologists across the country. I had them in a smaller size, much like this. And they could lay the cards down from left to right and sound out words. All those cards and cassettes were sold right away. But I was left with an inventory of posters, big posters showing the mouth positions of the 40 basic sounds of American English. And when the speech pathologist would call me and ask, do you have any more of those smaller cards? I say, no, but I have the posters. Don't you want the posters? Needless to say, I was not a very good marketer or salesperson, because the rule of thumb is give the customer what the customer wants.
Give them what they want.
That's right.
To give the people what they want.
Absolutely. So I have used those mouth positions in various tools, such as Good Speech Makes Good Sense, and I developed Good Speech Makes Good Sense for a general audience. As I indicated earlier, I work with people from across the world, people from Germany, France, India, Pakistan, Spain, etc. People wanted to speak American English with more of an Americanized accent and less of a foreign accent. And earlier I alluded to my working with them on pronunciation. And pronunciation includes articulation, which actually means to come together. To articulate means to bring together the articulators, which are the lips, teeth, tongue, jaw, and palate, which is your roof of your mouth, bringing them together